Welcome to CareSmarts 360 on Air, a home care podcast. I'm Erin Kell, account executive at CareSmarts. Mergers and acquisitions, M&A, can be a crucial strategy for home care agencies seeking to expand their services, increase market share, and improve overall success. However, navigating the complexities of M&A transactions can be a daunting task, especially for those without prior experience. A successful M&A strategy requires careful planning, preparation, and execution. One of the key considerations is managing emotional stress, which can arise from the uncertainty and change that comes with M&A deals. Agencies must be prepared to address the emotional impact on employees, seniors, and other stakeholders to ensure a smooth transition. Another critical aspect is establishing an effective M&A team, comprising individuals with the necessary expertise and experience to navigate the deal process. This team should be able to identify potential pitfalls and develop strategies to mitigate them. To arrive at favorable deal terms, negotiate fair prices, address regulatory compliance, and ensure the deal aligns with the firm's long-term goals. By understanding the key considerations and strategies involved in M&A transactions, home care professionals can make informed decisions that drive growth and success for their agencies. Today, we have on the panel Rachel Boynton, an international M&A expert and a consultant in the field for over 6 years. She is the founder of Rachel Boynton Consulting and has a niche in providing M&A consulting services with respect to operational excellence and strategic growth in home care. Welcome to the podcast, Rachel.
Thanks for having me, Erin.
So we'll jump right into it. What are the most common operational challenges that home care organizations face during the M&A process, and how can they be mitigated?
Yeah, I think your intro was perfect. It is a very overwhelming process. And I think a lot of people go into it not understanding how daunting and overwhelming the process can be. In particular, the diligence process, which is once you get that offer, which can be difficult. I'm sure a lot of owners get cold calls all the time with all these great sounding offers, but then comes the diligence. And that can be very difficult when you're trying to run a company and trying to keep your day-to-day operations going well. It can be very overwhelming. So I always suggest not only that you have an external team that will help you through the process, an advisor, a good M&A lawyer is super important, but you also look within your team to figure out who's going to help you and be most beneficial to you, because it is hard to keep it a secret for a long time, especially when you're digging into your clinical records or your HR records or financials. So having a trusted team member is often very helpful.
Absolutely. And how to assess the cultural fit between two home care organizations, and what strategies do you recommend for integrating cultures post-merger?
I really try to instill in buyers that and sellers, mostly sellers, that it's their burden to choose a buyer. So oftentimes someone will go to market to sell their company and they think the one offer they get is what they have to accept. It's so not true. There are so many buyers out there that the seller should do their diligence as well and really get to know the company that's looking to acquire them. And they need to see if the fit is there.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is or isn't, have that conversation with the buyer. What are we going to do to mitigate all of those risks? Because the cultures are different. How can we create a strategy that will work? And it's very important to have those communications going on and discuss these integrations early on. But ultimately, it's up to the seller. The seller should choose their buyer the same way the buyer chooses a seller.
Yeah, that's a great way to think of it. And what are the key performance indicators that home care agencies should focus on to measure the success of an M&A deal? And how do you recommend tracking and analyzing those metrics?
Well, all of those measurements should be happening before the M&A process has even started, right? So as an agency, you should be gathering your data. You should be making sure your quality is there and tracking those outcomes. The important thing is that those outcomes should not change during the process. So it's important that when you're going through the process, it's business as usual. You can't stall, you can't put things to the back burner. So ultimately, all of those indicators should be coming through to the other side of the process so that you're ensuring that what you held important at the beginning or before the M&A process is still being maintained. And those can be those industry standards, measuring your recruitment and your retention. things that are done by other folks, but also what's important for your organization. Maybe it's a culture within your organization that you want to continue. Just make sure you keep measuring those until post-close so that you keep those goals in mind all the way through.
Mhm. And how do you advise home care agencies to approach due diligence in an M&A deal? And what are some common mistakes to avoid?
You've got to know that it's as bad as it sounds. I mean, you need to understand, and I can't sugarcoat it. I can't. I try to prepare people and they still really don't understand how cumbersome it is.
Mm.
You're going to have to turn over every single piece of paper that has ever crossed your desk in your company. Everything from your letters of incorporation to your billing, your bank accounts, your attendance, or however you do your billing. They're going to look at all of those things and you have to have that ready. So again, if before you get into this process, you can become as paperless as possible, that's helpful. Having technology on your side, very helpful. Because once you can just give someone access to your electronic records, that's going to be a lot easier than folks coming into your office and scanning files. So any way that you can simplify your paperwork is helpful. Having one or two people on your team that you trust and you bring into that inner circle during the diligence, maybe that's your CFO or your clinical person that you can trust, but bring people in to help you. Even if it's an outside, you'll want your outside accountant, an M&A lawyer. Those are helpful people as well, but make sure you share a little of the burden because it can be incredibly overwhelming. And most owners don't touch all of those pieces. They usually delegate a lot of that. So if you do, make sure you bring those people on. Some of the pitfalls are things fall apart because an owner will get so wrapped up in the diligence process that they start losing sight of running the business, or vice versa. They don't pay attention to what is happening with diligence. And they say, well, running my company comes first, and I'll just get to that later. It's true, your company has to keep running, but the more time you let go by, the slower this deal can go, the more likely things can fall apart. So you want to be sure you keep your business running, but you also commit to that diligence process. Don't take a vacation in the middle of it. Don't empower the wrong person to represent you. Those things can really be deal killers as well.
Hmm. And last question for you. What strategies do you recommend for retaining key employees and maintaining continuity of care during the M&A process? And how can home care agencies ensure that seniors continue to receive high quality care?
Yeah, I mean, it all begins and ends with your staff. That care is going to happen as long as your staff are with you along the way, committed to what they're supposed to be doing, and that's from top down. So you want to make sure, I got my screen there. You want to make sure that you are, first of all, bringing in those valued team members you need. I think that is going to do that. There we go. You want to have a core team. If you don't bring in some of your key leadership from the beginning, at some point before close, you want to start bringing them in, because what you don't want is the day of close is when your most trusted key employees find out, and they find out along with everybody else. They feel very slighted that way. They don't feel like they're part of your team anymore. So you want to have a very delicate transition process based on who those key people are and when they really need to know. Because again, if you tell them a few weeks before close, then you let it get into their heads and they react the way they need to with you. And then you can discuss it with them. And then they've gone through it. They've gotten to it. They understand that it's going to be okay. And that you as a leader are helping to ensure a smooth process. Then when you have to tell the rest of your staff, they can help represent you as well. So now it's not just you and the buyer against the entire organization. It's you and your team sharing this information with the teams. And it's a group transition as opposed to an adversarial, scary kind of thing that happens. The other thing I like to suggest to sellers is think about creating a bonus structure for your key employees. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that the buyer understands who the key employees are and that they offer some kind of agreement, some kind of contract, employment contract or such that helps those key employees feel good about staying on. But then you might also come up with a bonus structure at close to thank those key employees for helping you through this process, but also encourage them to stay post-close because you know how important their continuity is to the services that you're providing. So there are several ways of helping with that, but those are kind of the easiest ones I would suggest.
Yeah, those are great ideas. Well, thank you, Rachel, for sparing your time and sharing great insights. I'm sure the audience has found these useful. And thank you all for tuning in. Until our next episode, this is Erin Cal signing off.